We'll try to learn a little bit of the Sikha in Acharei Beis, Chelek Yud Zayin, the theme of the Sikha. The Rebbe starts and says like this: "V'si Masechta Yuma Zochti Gemara." Gemara says over there in the end, "Tanad Vei Rabbi Shmuel, Acharei Acharei b'Yom HaKippurim Yida Kol Hashana Kula. V'im also leishana, if you live through the year, Muftach leishuhu ben Elam Haba." Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Teda, why is it like that? Shekol Elam Kuli Rav. As Rashi teaches, Asur b'Tashmish Hamita. Asur b'Hu Savam, because he saw a Keri. Asur Rav Dimi Amar Mapish Chai. He lives long. Sagi umazgi. Mapish Chai is Sagi, long life. Umazgi, as Rashi teaches, and Rabbi will bring it later, that he's also going to have children. That's what the Gemara says. The Pashtas Dart Mezogen, as the Gemara bring the memories. Why does the Gemara bring this piece? Als Hemshech in Zeir Techen, zu dem was steht dort freien, Acharei Acharei b'Yom HaKippurim Yered v'Tevel. The din was that when before was in this battle, Takonos Ezra, so even though b'Yom HaKippurim you're not allowed to, one of the things which is also b'Yom HaKippurim is Rechitza, but Acharei Acharei is Yered v'Tevel, because before Takonos Ezra was in this battle, you're not allowed to daven to learn without going to the mikvah. So behemshech to them, the Gemara brings this thing over here that if you do see Acharei is muftach leishuvah, and if you so on, Yida Kol Hashana, and then muftach leishuvah. Mit darf aber verstehen, wie kommt das, als der Perek Yom HaKippurim, was Kololos in Yoni is Kishmei Tshuva v'Kapara, that's the whole, the Indian of Yom HaKippurim is the Indian of Tshuva and Kapara, befragt der Teuchen von der letzten Mishnah und die Gemara Shelach is Indian of Tshuva. So how is it, soll die Gemara Messiah mechoisen sein mit der Indian Hofchi, the Gemara should finish with the opposite thing von Tshuva v'Kapara. Und dazu noch eine von die Halbstaveres, was wenn sie is bemazed, is a very, very strong, very hard, a very strong Aveda. When again to Tshuva v'Kapara, from this Aveda, as the Alter Rebbe explains, and the Gemara explains, and the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, and the Geras at Tshuva. Und von bemazed, ich verstandig, when again is Shegeg, that if the Aveda is so chomer, bemazed is also understood that B'Shegeg is also a hard Aveda. Was is doch be'erech tzas zu mezid, then the shagig is a little bit compared to mezid. Kemuven euch von the chelukei ha'anshim be'mezid, and there be'karbonis v'kayetze b'zeh b'shagig. So the question is, how is it that the end of the Masechta of the Perek Yom HaKippurim, which talks about such a high thing of kapara, the Gemara should bring down an Indian of the opposite of kapara, such a hard Arveda. Und Agam, as the Gemara fehlt us, even though the Gemara concludes over there, as if also Leshana, if sof is Adarabba Muftach Leshuhu ben Elam Haba, Mapishchai Sagi Yomaski, Mapishchai Sagi Yomaski. Even though the Gemara concludes with a davar, with a great thing, Elam Haba, now his wife and children, is that the Ober is das was le'achar zman noch Yom HaKippurim kumt aruis der Funa Ninyan Tei. Aber bei Yom HaKippurim Gufe, an Yom HaKippurim, is this doch an Indian, was is hepech for Ratzon Hashem. So how is it that on such a Perek, which talks about such a high level of Kapara, the Gemara concludes with the opposite? Euch darf man verstehen in dem Etzemoinje. Wie kommt das, as a dove bilti rotze bekeflaim? How is it that a thing which is a double negative thing, Harei one a keri, which is a bad thing, and b'Yom HaKippurim, so from them aruis kumen azati elis niflo should come out such a great benefit that muftach lei one shul ben Elam Haba. Un mapish chai sagi, and he has a long life for maski and bring also children. In order 7, just to mention quickly, the Rebbe brings down why Rashi says that Rashi teaches that both sagi and maski, he'll have a long life, and children will have children as well. And the Alter Rebbe goes into explaining over here why the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch brings down only the first thing of Yarech Yomim, not B'nei Bonim. B'nei Bonim in the first status, the Rebbe says a very simple thing, because Bonim B'nei Bonim is negated to how old the person is, and the Acharei Keri can happen to any person, even a person who is older, doesn't have any children anymore, won't have any children anymore. But the Inni from Yarech Yomim is for Il Mabon, Yarech Yomim is for everybody. And then the Rebbe brings another text. Back to the Pnim, the Rebbe says, Rashi is mafalish in them, also Lishono, what does it mean? Also Lishono, Shalei Mes, then Muftach Lei. Why? What do you mean Muftach Lei? Shemasib Tevim Yesh Biyodei Sheginilon. Why does he have Muftach Lei Sheoben Mabon, who didn't die that year? Because Vazaraya, that this person has a lot of Maisim Tevim that protected him from this Indian of Keri, which brings the opposite of life. So the Rebbe says, das is aber nor a hasbora and zan ander Zach, which is Maisim Tovim, soll making sein auf das, as das soll ihm nicht verschaffen. That something else, the Maisim Tovim, should protect him from the Keri, he shouldn't harm. Aber, von dem, was man sagt, Acharei Keri, is a simin as Muftach Lei. This in itself is a simin, not something else. This in itself as a simin is mashma, as a sizdo, a shaykh is b'neim. Not only that this is a simin that he has good ma'asim tovim, but that this in itself has a benefit that it brings out that he has olam abos and arichas yomim and children. The shaila is, so therefore the question is, via ze peltes dem yisre naila for muftach le'shu ben olam abo, that the Acharei Keri is a raya that he's a olam abo. But that's a lashon that mashma from the Pashas halosh. Und noch mehr, euch bei olam hazeh is mapish chayis sagi, that he's going to have a long life, or maski b'bonim b'nei bonim. How is it possible that the thing itself, which is such a negative thing, should bring out such a great thing on all the miles and all the payments of abo? Very interesting, Ha'orah 10. The Rebbe says in Ha'orah 10, when the Rebbe says in the Pnim, that not only that this is a separate thing, but this in itself is a simin that there's a connection between. So it's known, the Rebbe says over there, we know that in a simin, there's two ways how do you what a simin is. A simin is only a raya, or simin is goyim the mitzias. The Rebbe talks about it on the sichos l'gabi simonim of chaya and all chayas. If the simin is only a raya that is a kosher animal, or the simin is the one who causes the kosher animal, make the kosher animal. So the Rebbe says in Ha'orah 10 that afilu im timchalema, even if you're going to say that a simin is only a mavarer as hametzias, hanimtzas kvar v'lei gerim hametzias. Even if you're going to translate that a simin is only a raya, but it doesn't cause the mitzias, if you would say that the pshat is that a simin causes the mitzias, is the shaila from the pnim even a stronger shaila? How can you say that such a negative thing is a simin which is causing the olam haba and the arichas yomim and children b'chol? For sure, the shaila is, even if you're going to say that Rebbe says that the taj of a simin is only a raya, or besofkos, even then the shaila of the pnim is a shaila that it's a raya that this is a thing that brings good things. It's a negative thing to bring. It's a be a raya that all the great things will come out from this. But Afal B'kein, it seems from the Pnim of the Sicha that the Rebbe over here is explaining it even more, that it's taka raya. Even though the Rebbe only in Ha'orah says, I feel him tim tleimar, that it's only that it's mevarer the mitzias. So I mean to say that the Pnim is mashma that it's not only a simin hamavarer. It seems in the Hemshech Sicha that the Rebbe is talking over here that it's taki goydem the mitzias, as he'll explain later on, and we'll see later on. See, based the Rebbe's mamshech. The name is Sudar Shaila is noch mer kosher being tshuva meyah. welche die Gemara sagt, as den is nasalik is obvious. Same question, and even more so, is been again what says that Zdeines, Averis, which is done by Mezid, become like schuyes. Correct of them, the Kedusha God is the Marshal. As is Adaba Tumur. The Marshal himself asks, in the Gemara over there, in Yuma, that it's a very hard thing to understand. But as kum techuyes as chaytaniskin, comes out that the one who sinned benefits more than the one who doesn't sin. Because his Zdeines, his Averis that he did by Mezid, becomes like schuyes. When the Mashal answers, when he reaches such a level of tshuva miyava, was and that we say that Zdenis Nasa like Izochi is vaday the is tshuva gemura moisiv b'masav atovim yoisim megidei hatzoyrech legabe oisei avin. That he adds, the Mashal says, if he does tshuva miyava, he must definitely add so much more maisim tovim compared to that sin that he did. But the yoisim amasim tovim shemaisim heim nasan like Izochi. And those additional maisim tevim that he does, they become zochiyos, kizochiyos. Okro the maisi machiach in the posik that the Gemara brings proves that point. Shenema ubeshov Rasha mirishosoi when a Rasha returns does tshuva from his avedas v'oso mishpod utzedaka aleim chai begemer. It seems that the mashma the Mashal says that the mishpot, the tzedakah, all the good benefit, good things that he did, shahoisiv that he added on, lastly, al tshuvosei aleim chayer yichya. That causes and brings him more life and becomes a zochus. That's what the Mashal answers. Frag the Rebbe, the Tiras is aber l'chayre nish moving. It's hard to understand this. Varim the lashon hagemara is that this doinis nasalik zochus means is muchach. Not an additional thing. I suffer in the schuyis to lead this dayness. That's what Mashal answers. That the maisim tovim that he does, he adds as a result of his avedas, brings him all the benefits. The Lashon Gemara seems nor the one's Lashon Gemara that this dayness itself they become zochiyos. If so, the kasha of the Mashal returns. How's it possible to say that the sinner Niskar, he benefits. Unagam the Rebbe continues on and says, as l'cha'ira kemen zogen that dos gufa men the Gemara. You can say that is pshat in the Gemara. Mitzdoinis nasalek is zochius. The Gemara means to say that being a yois as the Yisofah meisem tevim kumtach der fum was a mensch hat sich geendet und übergemacht durch sein Tshuva, dem Tshuva of this doinis. Why did he do all the meisim tevim? Because he did l'chatchila all the avedas. As a result of the avedas, he's adding on more meisim tevim. Eba say, comes aus, heißt das doch, that it's eben so, that chat is, as these doines, the avedas that he did, haben Görim gewinnen an sein und seinen Disciples Tshuva miyava und von des Chayes, und des Chuyes. That is the result, the reason that he does Tshuva, the highest level of Tshuva miyava, and he does all the better things. And the Rebbe brings an example for this, al derech. When we find by a star, the din is, was agama stama star is becheskes kashas. The Gemara says every star, if nobody complains against it, has a chazak and a kashas, and you can go collect your chovis from it. Is aber durch dem was zwert if him an irur. Is mekayim babesten. If somebody comes and is ma'ared, says that the star is a false star, and then you prove by besten, you mekayim the star by besten, then that the kasha is a kosher star, but kum the star mer toike bistama star, it becomes even stronger. Was hat nit gehat ken irur, as the Gemara says that the halacha is, and Rebbe brings it down in Ha'ara 18, that in order to mekayim a star from another star, the only way that you mekayim from another star, if you want to compare the two Eidos, is only if the second star which you want to use as a kiyum is a star shikara all of irur and huchsik bebesten, then you can use that star. That means that becomes a stronger star. Kum tachois, that what made this star stronger, that irur brought down the strength of the star. The Rebbe always brings this legabe de geula, that the geula ha'acharei is going to be a geula she'ein acharei golus is the dogma from the star shekara all of irur. So by Mela said, over here also you can say that the Aveda that he did caused the greatness of the tshuva mi'ava and the mitzvahs that he does. If so, it's a result of the tshuva, of this dainis. That's a type. Dainis, nasalik is obvious. But Mela, it's not choytaniska because he did much more great things than he did before. Well, then he would not do the Aveda. And that's pshat also the Mashalach. So the Rabbi says, das ist aber nicht maspik. But the error is not goyrem an ilui in dem star. When you mekayim a star, what becomes stronger? The star. But you don't have the money yet in your pocket. You have to use the star to go collect the money, and not necessarily you'll be able to collect the money. Not necessarily the person is going to pay you back, whatever it's going to be. But all you strengthen over here was only the star. And al derech zeh, if you want to compare it beneath the dat to us, then it is doing is goyrem an ilui in dem gavra was to tshuva. In other words, if you want to compare it to the star, it's like a thing that leads up to something else. That the person becomes a greater. He did tshuva mi'ava. He did a lot of more mitzvahs. Aber when lashon zdoinis nasalik izochies, the Gemara uses the lashon, says the lashon zdoinis nasalik izochies, is mashma not only that the person did more mitzvahs, not that this chefze from the zdainis, the act of this zdainis itself, they themselves, very nepach l'zochiyos, they become like mitzvahs, like zochiyos. And that, the pshat is, how is that possible? That an opposite thing, an zdainis should become kizochiyos. What's the pshat in that? So the Rebbe continues in Sif Gimel, and it says like this: "Vet men es verstehen api abir in Sim from Sech the Yuma b'Mishna." The Gemara says over there, "Omer Rabbi Kiva Ashrechim Yisrael lefnei mi atem mitarim omi mitar eschem abichim shabashamayim." Shenamar the Mishnah says brings two psukim: "Zarakti alechem mayim taherim utahartem va'omer mikveh Yisrael Hashem ma mikveh mitar esatmeim afakodesh baruch hu mitar es Yisrael." The Rebbe explains that Rabbi Kiva says over here two inyanim. Well, number one, he says, and then he says another thing, we'll soon explain what is the difference between the two. And if then bringt the zwei Pesukim, the Mishnah brings two Pesukim, of them bringt the zwei Pesukim, Rabbi brings his Mavai that Acharei explains, as in the zwei inyanim dikt sich aus the chilek zwischen the zwei inyani tahara. These two things represent two different inyanim in tahara. Hazah, when you spray the mei chatos, the pora aduma, and mikvah. Was if hazah darf man haben kavana letahara, they have to have the mazer, the one who sprays has to have kavana to be mitaher. Not the person who the Rambam in his pora aduma explain. Talks about it, and it says that the maza has to have kavanah to be metired, the person who becomes toyer. The toyer does not have to have that. The one who becomes toyer doesn't have to have kavanah, but the maza does. Und the tare be mikveh darf nicht haben kein kavanah. A mikveh is metired ich on kavanah l'tfilah. The Gemara says if a person falls in, a woman even falls into the mikveh, she becomes toyer. You don't have any kavanah. You don't need any kavanah. Only specific places, the Rebbe brings down in order 28 that there's certain reasons that they made in a certain things that you need kavanah, but b'derech klal mikveh does not need kavanah, and therefore the Acharei explains and he says, "Moving the chiluk from the lashon aksuvim was the Rabbi Kiva b'rei." Therefore, we can understand the two psukim. V'zarakti alechem mayim tehirim is one pasuk, or mikveh Yisrael Hashem. The first one is v'zarakti. Was agamas beide psukim reden begnin atara ayidei kodesh baruch hu. Both of the psukim are talking that the Eibishter is mitari. Is aber in dem ersten pasuk is gesagt geworden v'zarakti aleichem, the Eibishter is zerek peil zruka. He does a po'ul of zrika, which means he has kavanah. When you do a certain act, I'm acting. It's not a puppet. I'm acting. I'm doing something. In zweiten Pasuk aber wird bechlal nicht der Mond kein Peula, which is Kavonas Atara. Weil in dem Sug Atara is Kavona nicht gedobel achrochis, so we have two different levels of Tara. Hazah, which means Kavona, needs Kavona, and Mikveh that does not need Kavona. Punkt, wie sie sind voran, die zwei fundamentale Mitzad de Mitaher, as I said before, the din is Mitzad de Mitaher, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rebbe Messer, but benit ne da Mitzad de Meibersten, as they sind euch voran in Avedas HaTshuva v'Atara from Menschen, that there is also two levels, the Tshuva and the Tara that the person does. Und das sind, die Gemara is mabay, die Gemara says in Yuma, das sind die zwei kloles dicke Sugim in Tshuva, Tshuva meyire or Validei Yisurim, und Tshuva meyava. Tshuva meyava kommt mit der emesse Kavana mavukish lo Tshuva lavaya el Hashem or l'sakin chum. The Tshuva meyava has to have Kavana. Aber Tshuva meyira, v'alachachas kama v'kama if they are al Yidei Yisurim. So what is the kavan of the person? Is kavanas nitkumin le'oinish. That's all he wants. He doesn't want to be punished. He doesn't want to have the yisurim or even a yira. He doesn't want to be punished. Yira, level, a lot of levels in yira, but the simple thing in yira is not to be punished. But he doesn't have kavanah to have charata. The kavanah is not to be punished. And the Rebbe goes and the Rebbe says, the Rakachava goes on and says this, and the Unterschied sehr oft, what's the difference between the two Tshuvas is Mavuir and the Gemara. As Tshuva meir sagt der Posik, Epa Meshuvascha, that I only heal you from when you do Tshuva. Virashi Taich, Ki Balmum shenisrape shemitzas shmeyolo. It's like a Balmum that becomes healed, that he's still called a little bit of it. He was once upon a time a Balmum, and it remains in him. It just he got healed. Oh, but that's a yini from Tshuva Meira. Oh, but by Tshuva Miyava is neker avoini mitchila. The whole Aveda is neker as if it wasn't there. What's in the Gela? Halacha, the Rebbe always every chilik. Halacha, the Rakachov himself says this. But the chilik is the Gela Eichel Halacha. It's a gewaldige chiddush. The Rakachov says it. In the Gemara, we don't find this in Legabe, this Indian itself, but that's what the Rakachov says. But the chilik is Eichel Gela Halacha. B'shas einer is mekadosh al isha amnas as he hot nish kenavedes. Someone is mekadosh isha, but the condition she doesn't have avedes. Is oib ze hat noch. Oib the avedes was hot yegahat. You thought tshuva miyira. If afterwards she did an aveda and she did tshuva miyira, is it nish mekudeshes? Hayes had the avedes from shas kedushim zene nit neke geworden. And as Rashi says before, she still has a little bit of the name on it. It's only like a reif shiripa. Therefore, it's only off until a certain level, but she still has the balmum. She does have certain level of events. Is he yamakadashis? Weil ihre Aveda sind ein Necker geworden von Freier. It's as if she never had it l'chatchila. Ubemela hat sie euch b'shas hakedushim nicht gehabt in Avedas. Tshuva miyira b'shas hakedushim she had Avedas. Even if she does tshuva afterwards, it doesn't help. It takes it off to a certain level. Mashayin kein ober if she does tshuva miyava, it's nekar as if it was never there. Und wie die Gemara is mechalik, the Gemara does say such a chilik, but not like the chilik with tshuva miyava, tshuva miyira. That's a chiddush of the Rakachov is mechalik, but the Gemara is mechalik, but the difference between taking off a nether and healing a mum is what's the chiluk? Is mukadeshes. Aber it's a reifa, but if I say the mukadeshes, why? Because the halacha is a chacham oikeres a nether miyikare as if she never had a nether. So is mekadesh isha menashe ein aleh nedarim. She never had a nether, even though she had a nether. But the chacham is oikered as if it never was there. So as Rashi says before, a little bit of Shema is still nikra Allah. So therefore, it's as if she still has this balmum, this sickness that she had. Just out of 34, the Rebbe says brings the Rakachov that the chilik from tshuva miyira, legabe tshuva miyara, that tshuva miyira, she's not mukadeshes. Hayes at the Averis from Shasa Kedushin Zenanit Neka Geboren, the Averis did not become uprooted. So the Rebbe says in order 34, Kain Tzorach Lefarish Al Pi Pirish Rashi B'Ksuvas the Lekamon B'Fnim. The Rebbe brings the Gemara later on, and as we learned already just a few minutes ago, the Ramaskal Makano Lahaba. Rashi explains the Ramaskal Makano Lahaba, the difference between a Reifa and a Neder, that Makano Lahaba, Aval Ad Achshav Hoyu Aleho. Until now, she had the nidarim, the what do you call it, the sickness. Nimtza shebishas tanaya kedushin, that when she was becoming b'kudesh, she fooled him, because if it only uproots mekana lahaba, so at the time of the kedushin she had the averis. But Mela over here also the same thing l'gabi tshuva miyira, being that it's only nekar the averis mekana lahaba. Because the dogma is, Rashi says, so in other words, it's only mikano lahaba. Masha'enki tshuva miyava is neked l'katchila. But Mela kumdu is that tshuva miyava meliyira. It's until now she had the avedis. The Rebbe continues on. Masha'enki l'pirush hatesis shom diver maschel chacham. The thesis over there explained. Tesis says that what's the union of uprooting healing and what do you call it, the mum. So the Teisha says, as the Rebbe brings down right away, that that means, in other words, it's only because he remembers that she had it, but she now it maybe even uproots it before, but she Lepeil had it then. So Lepeil, it's not nekar. According to Pashas Kuntatesvis, that's what the Rebbe L'Chayr means to say in order that it's not Batshuva Miyira, it's not Neka Malchatchila. It's only that he remembers that she had it before. That's all. So the Rebbe Oben no. Aval Gamla Fi the Pirish HaTesvis, that in the quotes now what the Tesvis says, Shav Ata Lachash in the Serapis, in the message Kishazeichel Shahoyubo, before he uprooted it Milchatchila, where he remembers, it's only told is that the Rebbe yes lefarish b'nin then apipirasha. Now that Rashi says, as the Rebbe brings down the Rashi in Hesheh and Posig, that it's miktzah shmei olav. That means that it's not uprooted all the way. That it's only uprooted in a certain way. Milchatchila, aber miktzah shmei is still olav. So even according to Teisvis, that in them remembers is also maybe the pshat is that a little bit it's left. L'chayre, that's what the Rebbe means in 34. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, let's go further in the Pnim Mesiv Dalet. The Rebbe goes on and says, "Der chiluk zwischen tshuva miyava and tshuva miyira b'chlal." This is what we explained. The difference between tshuva miyava that avam that are uprooted that l'chatchila there was no way. Mashenke tshuva miyira, it's only healing mikano lahaba. Is faran befrat in the ifana tshuva miyava guf. In tshuva miyava gufa, you can also differentiate between levels of tshuva. The Rebbe goes on and says, "Das was durch tshuva miyava, that neker avenim mit chilasi. Why does it become uprooted? Is noch nicht the tachlis hashlemis in tshuva miyava. Tachlis hashlemis, the ultimate tshuva in tshuva miyava is when now it becomes uprooted. Uprooted means it disappears. It's not there. So once it's not there, you don't have the benefit from this dainis. It's just not there. When is it the tachlis hashlemis in tshuva miyava? Is when this dainis nasle kizochies, and this dainis very not nor blois naked, not only to become uprooted, nor they very kizochies. And the Rebbe explains. Now, there's many levels in tshuva miyava. These are the three levels, even in tshuva miyava. When ich kam become dargis in the tshuva was kumt al yod. So therefore, the tshuva miyava also has many levels. Und wie bald as the meile von tshuva miyava is das was ich kumt bekavona kinal. We said before that the difference between tshuva miyava and tshuva miyira is al derech the chilik von hazor and mikveh. The hazor needs kavona and mikveh does not need kavona, and therefore tshuva miyira does not need kavona of the tshuva. It's only the kavana is not to be punished, but not from the tshuva. Mashek tshuva miyava is moving on the shlemus hakavana, being that there's levels in tshuva miyava. The shlemus hakavana in Tshuva Miyava is in the Hechten Eifen von Tshuva Miyava. It's in the higher level in Tshuva Miyava Guf. Because we can sagen, the Rebbe goes so far as the Kavane from the Nideriken Eifen, the Kavane in the lower level of Av, when it only accomplishes only that it becomes uprooted, that is not really called a Kavane. And the Rebbe brings a dogma in Ha'ara 37, which is explained in the Gemara, that if a person goes to the mikveh for chulin, he's a person who ate chulin b'tahara, then he's only huchsiklet chulin, but he's still also to eat ma'aseh to a higher level. And the same because if it goes to mikveh for kodesh, he's only huchsiklet gabe kodesh, but it's still also lachatos, which is the higher level, and so on and so forth. Now, derech Maimon back to the Pnim, as the Gemara says, the Maimon say, as biyava b'chol levavchem b'chol nafshchem on b'chol me'itchem, if it's only in the lower level of Shuvah Yava, it's b'chol levavchem b'chol nafshchem, but it's still missing b'chol me'itchem, wird men angerufen ein eisem letzeni shalbokim. B'chlolis is das musber in dem Loshen for Ragachover, in generally to explain it in the Loshen as the Rabbi Shova brings before, the Rabbi Shova said before, lahavir hachet. If all you have to take off the chet, which is neker mechatchila, tshuva miyavo, le boi kavona, or the sakin hachet, boi kavona. To be misakin, it means that it should become a zochis. The Rebbe goes on and says, me'ein hechrech, to prove it, a hechrech, as is dot the chilik in tshuva miyavo gufa, is from halacha psuka. The Rebbe brings halacha that's going to prove this point that in Shuvah Miyava Gufa you have the levels. The Gemara sagt, Gemara says himself, Kedushin Gemara says, as enes mekadosh anisa, Aisha, amnasha ani tzadik, fil rosh gomor is mechadeshes, shema hira tshuva b'dayt. Fragt me the roof the kasha. The Rebbe is not Mitzayim any mokim. His vice is the Rebbe's kasha and the Rebbe's teretz itself. But I don't know of any more. Fragt men the roof al memonvsh. Rat ich da wegen tshuva miyira. If the Gemara is talking Shem miyira tshuva only the level of yira, is doch nicht mekum that tnai. What's the tnai is? Hani tzad gomer, right? Mi says doch das. Da war doch tshuva miyira. Wer doch nicht kin tzadik. V'baut, based on the Ragachova, which the Rebbe brought until 4, based on Rashi, as mitzvah shmei olav. Mitzvah shmei means he still has a vedas a little bit, so he's not outside the gomer. He said the Gemara says, I'm not outside the gomer. I'm not. So if he did only tshuva miyira, he's not on the level of a tzaddik because shmei is still olav. Shmei of the avera and therefore Rosh Hashanah. If the person did the high level of tshuva miyava, also why not? For that tzaddik, K'mayim Razal, b'mokim shebal tshuva imdim, ein tzaddikim gmurim yichaylim lamed. Und der Din idoch, the Gemara says, af oich hita lishvach, even if it's the mistake, she fooled him, lishvach, or he fooled her, lishvach, I mean, zi lishvach yuchsin, sagen dik, as is a kleinere miyuches, wie is be'emes, or a Levi, a Koyen, or whatever, different lower levels of a higher level, and he's not such a higher level. Or lishvach momen, ani amanashani oni bin za'oshin, is eichet eine mekudeshes. If so how is it possible that if a person says I'm tzaddik and he did tshuva, is it mekudeshes? Because shemi hiru tshuva mamonam shech. There's not the tshuva doesn't work. Tshuva meyira doesn't work, but he's still a rosh in a certain level. Tshuva meyava doesn't work because it's about tshuva, not a tzaddik. Vahatirutz, again, the dirzani the Rebbe gives is Hashem hiru tshuva meyava means azat tshuva was poilt nor as neker avayni mitchilosi. Aber nicht as doinis naslek izochis. Be'emes, the Gemara means maybe the tshuva miyava. You say he's higher than a tzaddik who's about tshuva? No. The Gemara is talking only that he did tshuva miyava on a lower level. So all he did over here was he uprooted the avera. So if he uprooted the Aveda, all he is only a tzaddik, but not in the level that it becomes Zochiyes. Was Dafka, if they're Darge, there's such a high level in Tshuva that the Avedas turn to Zochiyes, is gesagt geworden as B'mokim Shabal Tshuva, in the main tzaddikim Yichelim Lamed, then he's in a level of B'al Tshuva higher than a tzaddik, and therefore then Taka would not be Mukadeshes. But if he does, the Gemara, when the Gemara says that it's Mukadeshes, it's something that it did Tshuva, Miyavo. It's only Tshuva Miyavo, but the lower level of Tshuva Miyavo, it's only Nekat. So maybe it's not tzaddik. That's a hechrech that you must be mechalik between Tshuva Miyavo and Gufa in order to explain what's pshat in the Gemara. Otherwise, the Gemara doesn't make sense as the Gemara is. We say the Mizrah Yishlem that goes on. Even more so, B'shas is doch shas from here Tshuva. He only was maharer b'tshuva. B'shayta choda v'rigya choda. We know about tshuva can become. You can do tshuva b'shayta choda v'rigya choda. Can it zayin shleimus hakavona? Shleimus hakavona means such a high level in kavona that's then this nasal like zochiyes. Was poil that's then is become like zochiyes. As a soll sein nach hechva tzaddik. That's very hard. That's very hard to accomplish in one split second. Before we go on further in the Pnim, just two nukudas. First of all, is our order 45. The Rebbe says, according to this chiluk, it's tzorchim k'tzas. The Rebbe says what the Rabbi Yosef, Harav Zevin writes in the Sefer Hameidim Halacha, b'shem the Rakat Shover, are mocked to the Rambam that he says the Baal Tshuva is gedelim tzadikim from this Gemara in Kedusha. The Rabbi says, according to what we said now, from this Gemara is not a raya, because the Gemara must be talking in a level that tzaddik is not higher than a Baal Tshuva. Because if it would be higher than that Baal Tshuva would be higher, than a tzaddik, then it would not be Mukudeshes. If so, the Gemara says the Baal Tshuva is higher from a tzaddik, cannot be from this Gemara, because the Gemara then the din should be non-Bukadeshes. So that's the chayda is shaila on what he writes. Just another observation. Come to this very interesting point. The Rebbe says over here in this, he said that hirid tshuva, which is b'shayt echad b'dig echad, cannot be to the level of a tzaddik gomor tshuva miyava in such a level that's din is naslik is obvious. Just ebezei come to is that the lower level of tshuva miyava, that it becomes nekem milchatchila, you can even have a shayta choda b'dig choda. In other words, not only the lowest level of tshuva can be b'shayta choda b'dig choda, even a tshuva miyava can be b'shayta choda. The Rebbe only says that it can't be the highest level. Come to is that you can reach even such a level of tshuva as well. Also, in the Hara 46, and that's a little connected to what I just finished saying. You can say the Rebbe says that when Rebbe wants to be machriach, that there's a chiluk in levels in Shuvah Miyama from this din in the Gemara. The Rebbe says hechrech gomor einay. There's no mamash hechrech gomor. Why not? Ki yesh litchis, you couldn't say that the Gemara is not negeh da mitis hadarge in Shuvah Bala Shuvah. Only what he's called a tzaddik, belosh min hayadam, as the Alter Rebbe explains in the Kutub Urim for Rav Korver explains. So b'meila v'bal is not again the real levels in tshuva in tzaddik, only what people call. So b'meila you can explain that that's pshat in the Gemara. B'meila it can be that he's take a tzaddik, even though he's not higher than a Baal Tshuva. Continuation in the Pnim, that's Boren. Then what's Saket is Boren in the Chiluk of these Darges? So the Rebbe, Mile from a Baal Tshuva, like a Tzaddik Gomer. What's the Mile of a Baal Tshuva? Over a Tzaddik that Oilam never did a sin, is not placed in the Yisrael becomes. Not only that he does more mitzvahs, the Baal Tshuva being that he did Aveda becomes and does more mitzvahs. That's why he's higher than the Tzaddik. As Neusif to seine Zochi is Mitzad Atzmei, hat the Baal Tshuva euch the Zochi is. Was when from these days they turn into Zochis, the Avedas turn into Zochis. So he has much bigger number, which a tzaddik doesn't have because he doesn't have any Avedas. Nor oich ubeike. The main point is Mitzad Yisrin be'echos. Baal Tshuva is a mitzvah is in a different echos, different not only in kamas, in different echos. Zdoinis naslik Zochies. Zochies von an ander Eiches. Und der Fahr ist bemokim Shebal Tshuva in dem ein Tzadikim guanim Yecholim Lami. Why? Because not only it's more. More does not mean Yecholim, even though it's taka more, but it's in a whole Eiches Dik, not only in number. The whole essence of a mitzvah of the Zochi of the mitzvahs is on a higher level. Wie viel Zochies a Tzadikim soll man haben? Soll durch seine Aveda Nabis? Can it zukommen to the Nair Aveda, another Eiches, a total different essence in Zochies. Aber das kann sein nur, wenn die Tshuva kommt mit der Schleimes aber Kanal, Memele Schleimes HaKavone. We said before that Tshuva Miyava and Tshuva Miyira, the difference is in the Kavone itself, as it's mentioned before. Tshuva Miyira is not a Kavone from Tshuva, it's only a Kavone for not being punished. Mashenki Tshuva Miyava, but the Shleimas HaKavone Tshuva Miyava is only the highest level, as we'll explain Kidel Kamon. But das Peil to Masaken sein dem Chet, this fixes the Chet to such a level, and this doing this goof and not only disappear, as a born this chutz. The Rebbe goes on and says, if hey the Bira Indian for Shleimas Ava Vakavone, and wie say this doing this very kezoch is that Alter Rebbe Masbir and Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains the Tanya and I read the piece of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe says, as Macholas Asuris, then Asurim Ukshurim de Achatzenim Loilam, they're always tied in the clippers. Chetzenim vein oile mishom at shiyas at shuva gdel kol kach the at shiyas at shuva gdel kol kach shes denis naslik ezochi es mamish shehi tshuva me avo me umka de libo be'avo rabo bechasheka v'nefesh shekeka ledofko b'yizborich utzmei nafshela Hashem ke'eretz ayefo v'tzio lihiyois. Thirsty. He has sit achro rechike meir pnei Hashem betachlis. But azayis tzmei nafshe beyeser ois mit tzmoin nafshe satzadikim ki ma'amor mzal shemok mishabal tshuva indim chulu bal tshuva miyava rabba zu amru shes denis naslik ezochis hoyel bal yedei zeh bole ava rabba zu. And the Alter Rebbe explains. Was dos zok der beidin yonim. The Alter Rebbe in this paragraph that we read says both in you that Ilui was vert in dem Gavra, the person becomes a different person. Where we see that the Alter Rebbe says this doinis daveris rufen aruis because until now he was in a place of tziyah v'tzalmoves. Therefore, he is tzmeya nafshoy of the person b'yesareis mitzimoy nafshis hatzadikim. The thirst to the Eibishter becomes by the person much greater than the thirst of a tzaddik. And then also the shini cheftze was vert in these doines, that this doines becomes zochis. So we see that this tshuva not only changes the person, but it has to such a high level that it changes the cheftze as well. And the Rebbe brings us Borazeh al derech halacha. But again, the meaning for Achone v'achshara to a gewisser Pula, when you have to prepare for certain, you fit min kama v'kama chaluke dinim v'dargis and ze'er chshives and ze'er yachas to the Pula. In many levels of the connection of the preparation compared and how much it becomes connected with the actual mitzvah. L'dugma, Rebbe says. Machshiri mitzvah. Hayes, as on ze can man nit mekayim sein the mitzvah. Without the preparation, you cannot be mekayim the mitzvah. But kommen ze allein achshivus. The thing itself becomes achshivus. And that is in many things as well, as the Rebbe explains in many other sikhs. In further down, the Rebbe talks about different mitzvahs that you have to prepare. And the Rebbe says they become a pair of a mitzvah, a part of the mitzvah itself. But the Rebbe over here points out Udas Rabbi Elazar in the Gemara Masechta Shabbos Perkei Rabbi Elazar the Mila is Koirsim Eitzim. If a person forgot to bring an izemel to make the bris milah on Shabbos, so Rabbi Elazar holds that Koirsim Eitzim, you're allowed to even cut wood, lasis pachomim, and burn them and make charcoals in order to make a barzel, make the knife in order to make the tzlib an izemel lemila b'Shabbos. L'daitoi of Rabbi Lezer, the halacha is not like him, but l'daitoi, then a roiv machshira mitzvah dechenes haShabbos. Roiv means, because the Gemara says in Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph, that not everything Rabbi Lezer holds that it becomes a Shabbos. The Gemara has a whole arichas, and the Gemara concludes over there that Gabi two dinim l'mashul of tzitzis l'talisei mezuzah l'pischei. Over there, even Rabbi Lezer is going to be moide that machshira mitzvah does not become like the mitzvah itself, as the Gemara explains. So this is a kontra Rabbi Lezer, who holds that machshira mitzvah become mamish like the mitzvah, and you're allowed to be machal Shabbos on them. L'mayla mezeh gefindt men das ha-Yerushalmi. Benegei the achshara, hachana b'achshara to the mitzvah sukkah ulula v'kayetze b'zeh, the Yerushalmi holds that ha'oise sukkah l'matzmei. When you build a sukkah, you make the bracha shekin shara b'mitzvah v'tzivonu la'asei sukkah. The same thing also, ha'oise lula v'atzmei la'atzmei. Oimer the Yerushalmi says, Baruch HaShekin shara b'mitzvah v'tzivonu la'asei sukkah. Und azoy by the mitzvah von tefillin and tzitzis, that you make the bracha according to the Yerushalmi to create that thing which is only the machshirei mitzvah. And the Rebbe says in order 55 that the chiddush in this piece of the machshirei mitzvah is because according to Rebbe Lezer, the halacha is also not like the Yerushalmi either. The halacha is not like the Yerushalmi. We'll soon talk about it, and also not like Rebbe Lezer. After became there's a chiddush why the Rebbe brings the Yerushalmi over Rabbi Lezer, both are halacha, because there is a chiddush in this connection to the mitzvah over Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer only holds that machshira mitzvah is Deichen Shabbos, but he himself also holds that it only stays in the level of machshira. That's what Rebbe says over here in Ha'ara 55. Mashenkel and Das Yerushalmi, they become a mitzvah. That's why you make a bracha shekin shana b'mitzvah v'tzivanu, even though it's only a machshira mitzvah. That's what the Rebbe says in Ha'ara 55. In order 56, the Rebbe says, as I mentioned before, even though the halacha is not like the Yerushalmi, so the Rebbe says, but the Gamla Habavli, that the Bavli holds the Einim Orach B'Shas HaSiyoson, and that's way we paskin as well. And as Tesis and the Rishonim bring that Chelek al Shas Shalom, that the Yerushalmi argues, so the Rebbe says that's only in the B'negei to the bracha. But even the Bavli also agrees that it's a mitzvah, that it becomes a mitzvah. You just don't make a bracha. And the Rebbe quotes from different mitzvahs, like different mitzvahs that goes on the whole order, that the Gemara always calls it mitzvah, even though we're talking only legabe the what they call it legabe the making of the thing of the thing which is going to bring you to do the mitzvah. And the Rebbe goes on in the Pnimi and says, "What's the pashtus is that has body in them? What's the explanation that machshira mitzvah?" Or you can make a bracha on the preparation of building the sukkah and so on and so forth. He said, yes, the Torah don't gesagt zu bekeim sein a gewisse mitzvah. The Torah said to do a mitzvah. Was kann durchgeführt werden nur durch eine bestimmte Bepole von Achone. The only way you can do that mitzvah is only if you prepare for that mitzvah. Darf man sagen, das ist euch nichlal in the mitzvah. It becomes part of the mitzvah. Oi, there put bekommt a de peula gufach shivas meich shivas a mitzvah. Not only it's included in the mitzvah, it gets itself a certain level of a shivas of a mitzvah. And that's a whole adichas in all the Lashenis and Order 56 that the Rebbe brings legabi building the thing, making the thing which is the preparation. And the Gemara calls it mitzvah. Uladasa Yerushalmi by sukkah. That is a mitzvah that you make the bracha. You have three levels over here. Then the Rebbe goes on and says even more. Noch a hechere Darge nach Shoras HaMitzvah gefindt man bei Avedas HaMikdosh. Und befragt bei die Alochas Hadom leMizbeach. Was agam as the Alocha is not to lead the Aveda von Zrikas Dam al Mizbeach, and it's not an Aveda itself. The Alochas Adam is not one considered mamish like the Zrikas Adam. is der din as der halacha gufa hat achshivis und a geder von aveda legabi what thing as we're going to talk about bis as machshavei peselas bo, that if you have a machshavas chutz, not a proper machshava, when you have a to spray it in the wrong time or eat it in the wrong time, whatever, so then the din is that the machshava is faisal the carbon when not b'shas zrikas dam, in the preparation to the zrikas dam, to the halachas adam. And the Rebbe goes on, b'chlolis yesed is that the inyan from avoda me'ein achshara. It's an avoda which is only achshara. It's me'ein achshara. It's a certain level of avoda. It's a certain level of avoda. Therefore, machshava peselas bo, but avoda she'ein tamo. It's not a complete avoda, and therefore, as a result of that, so you have dinim and gedorim from an avoda. Certain dinim she has, like on avoda gufa, as we mentioned before, the machshava peselas bo. Es aber no, es is aber nit ken avoda she gemeres. She doesn't complete it. Because there's still an Aveda after the halachas hadam. And it has a certain level of Aveda. That's the Hachshara, it gets a mamish adin and Aveda, like a certain level that Machshava B'Tzelas bo. Over Mele, but it's not Aveda Tamo, over Mele, so Gemara says, is Azor nit chayiv misa when a tut di Aveda, the Gemara says over there, that in Zvachim, the Gemara says that if a person is azor, is melech the dam, brings the dam to the mizbeach, he doesn't not mechuyev misa. The din is of azor that does the aved is mechuyev misa. So if the azor sprays the dam, he's not mechuyev misa. But if he brings the dam to the mizbeach, even though at a certain level it's an aved already, because machshava peselas bo. It's not Aveda Tamo, and if he's not Mechuyev Misa. Al Kaponim, but Al Kaponim, it becomes higher than the dargis which we spoke before, the preparation of a mitzvah, the Machshira mitzvah, and even the building the sukkah, even the Bavli, that it's considered a mitzvah. This is Mamish and Aveda. It's a chelik and different than a certain din. The din is that Apachshava B'Selas bo. But it's not a complete Aveda. But Al Kaponim, so it becomes mamish, a part of the Aveda in a certain level. How that the Rebbe brings is oichet moving benitten the dan. The Rebbe brings whole thing, all these dinim. The achshara becomes part of the mitzvah in certain levels, in so many levels, how we're higher and higher and higher. How that moving the dan. The what we're spending over here in the sich. Wir bauen das zum höchsten Leben von Shuvat HaMiyava. Kann zukommen. Only through the preparation, Kavayochel, Kanal Betanya, nur durch sein freudiges Denis. Und durch sie ist noch euch sein Kima Mitzvah, seine Zechuyes, not only more Zechuyes, but in a hecheren Eifen, werden des Denis allein ist alle und kriegen dem Gedder von Zechuyes, bedugme wie das ist beim Achshire Mitzvah, in all the levels, as we said before, till the highest level that becomes Mamish and Aveda. The halachas adam mizbeach is an avoda, and therefore machshava pesalas bo. But maybe the same thing also over here, being as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that this Dainis brought him to this highest level of Zochiyas, that it's not only more Zochiyas, a different level of Zochiyas, therefore it begets the gather of Zochiyas itself. Let's continue on Sivov. This beer until now to explain how the Zochiyas, the Dainis become Zochiyas with this beer and the Dugmoyis that we explained before from the Machshira Mitzvah, the Rabbi says not enough. And the Rabbi asks, Aleph, the Machshira Mitzvah allein werden doch nicht ein Tabach von Nase Mitzvah. Sie bleiben Machshirim, afil Rabbi Das, Rabbi Lozer. In other words, in the first level, Machshirim, as we said before, in the Ha'ara, they don't change, they don't become part of mitzvah, they remain machshirim. The Rabbi Lezer holds you can be machal Shabbos, but they remain machshirim. Oichel das had Yishalmi, the second level, as if I see is suke velulav machmin de brocha shegilshon b'mitzvahs v'tzivonu, bleibt es aber noch als a mitzvah. What mitzvah is it? Not the mitzvah of sitting with the sukkah, the mitzvah of making the sukkah. Al derech zeh, the Rebbe goes on in the higher level of halachas adam v'mizbeach. At the end of the day, Enochanami, there's a certain level she's considered an Aveda, and therefore Machshava B'Sel as well. She's not an Aveda Tama, and therefore Azor is not Chayiv Nisa. That's one difference. Base, another thing, Ve'iken. B'chol anal idos ha'achone und Pe'ule, was is in Zug und noch mehr Shaykh zu der Mitzvah Gufa. Machshire Mila, Machshire Sukkah, whatever, Machshire of this specific mitzvah. He said, goes to the Halachas Adam, the higher level. Halachas Adam is a preparation to the mitzvah of Zirkas Hadam. Macht das Sukkah Belulov, melech dem Dam lemizbeach. Schenke benit the Dam by the mitzvah of Tshuva. Hat doch mitzad echot geton a pula half chitz for the minyan atzchuyis. He did something opposite. Halachas Adam is a positive thing to get to the ultimate, to the Zrikas Adam. But he's not doing something against it, Chas v'sholom. Adarab. He's preparing a sukkah to do the mitzvah sukkah. He did something opposite of this chuyas. You're saying that what? The comparison is not compared. When can you say that machshira mitzvah become like the mitzvah itself? If you don't do a thing against, you do only a preparation. So the chiddush, a gewaltige chiddush, that preparation becomes part of the mitzvah. But to say an opposite should become a mitzvah, what's the connection? And the kasha wird noch starker. Then we see, as I feel about the machshirim and the pulas hachonas and the shus, we have certain machshirim to do a mitzvah, which bechlal not a mitzvah. Vicharisha, Zriya, planting and growing and everything. And the ganze Seder from Vasafta, the Ganach of Israel, this is all the Yonim of Rishus. Is Agam, as all on them Alim, Kemenit Mekaims and Mitzvahs was then verbunden. The certain mitzvahs that without doing these machshirim, which is just the Rishus, you cannot get to the mitzvah. Well, for which mitzvahs? Mitzvahs are Trumas, Meisris, Bechulu, Bechulu. Von deswegen, you findet man nicht, as it's all hamachshivas for the mitzvah. Even rishus. In other words, not an aveda. Even things where the rishus, they're not a mitzvah. They're not something which is connected directly with the mitzvah. It's not. They don't even get the level of machshir mitzvah. What's the reason why the inyan of rishus? Via shlemer atam. But we like the Rabbi. The Gemara says in brachos that when he saw people planting and working with the land, he says, he was very unhappy. It's not a proper thing to do because he is. So even though the halacha was not like it, the mother says over there that the halacha is not like the Rashbi, or Benezok the Rebbe, Ludas Rabbonon, it's not a proper thing. He says, nit besuk von Rotzi machshin mitzvah kayetze bezeh. The shaila becomes if in yonim of rishus, which is not a mitzvah, which is not rishus, don't turn into machshin mitzvah. How can you say that an aveda should turn into a mitzvah, not only to the level of machshin mitzvah, it becomes zachiyus at such a high level that it's higher than the zachiyus of a tzaddik. It's at a different level than a tzaddik any chayim lamet shom. What's asmora? Sivzayin is the beer of them bekitzer. The Rebbe says like this: by jeder mitzvah is dort der inyan a kloli, und that's a shava mit alle mitzvahs. Every mitzvah is one common denominator. Overlashon chazal oisim retzeni shel mokim, amata v'nasa retzeni. That's what the common denominator is. Every mitzvah you do the eibish is rotzim. But ofchen the opposite by jeder aveda over retzeni shel mokim. No, regardless what the mitzvah is, you're doing the same pula. Chas v'chlila opposite. Or when you do mitzvah kind, there are some names. That's one. And then there's in the protim, in the Yonim protim, then there's specific mitzvahs. Mitzvahs all over the station. Every single mitzvah has a specific thing. And the Rebbe says, by calling Yonim protim now, when you're talking about the individual mitzvah, Chotza de Achona Acharei is in them chayfetz or the b'shayches some chayfetz. The Acharei for a sukkah is to build a sukkah. The Acharei Zrikas Adam is to carry the dam in this specific thing. Was mit tut mit der mitzvah, sind sie aber nicht a chelik und prat von der mitzvah. They don't become part of the mitzvah itself. They become a siyas sukkah. You prepare the Isabel Miller, is not contained, doesn't become part of the Bilpoil Krisis HaOrlam. That's cutting of the arm. Sending a sea is Sukkah Lulam. It's a mitzvah, according to Shalmi, even according to Rabbi. Rabbi holds it as a mitzvah, you don't make a bracha. Rabbi, Shalmi holds you make a mitzvah. It's not Chelek, but from the Sukkah station, they don't become part of the mitzvah. Saying Galokas Adam. It's not Ketel for Zrike. It's a mitzvah, but it doesn't become part of the actual mitzvah. It's a preparation to the mitzvah. That is when you're talking about specific mitzvah, the prat is the Tshuva b'chlal is in Yana. What is the inyan of Tshuva? That's a lovely thing. That's already connected with the klolis rotzin Hashem. The klolis inyan of mitzvah. The Lashon Ramba, Maya Tshuva, sheyazev achoyte chete v'yasidim v'machshavtei v'yikme b'libi shelei yaseu eich enema yazev rosh darke begin. Das heißt, sie ist Bezug und noch mehr in demselben Ort von dem Kloli, in die Kloli von Mitzvahs und Averis. What is a mitzvah? What is tshuva? The person changes, and from now on, he wants to do Ritzeinish LaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. Hachlote berotzin, yigme belibei, in his mind and in his heart, und bald avos, that he's going to do from now on the Rotzon Hashem. So what is Aveda? The opposite of Rotzon Hashem. What is Mitzvah? Doing the Rotzon Hashem. What is Tshuva? Going back to do the Rotzon of Hashem. Und wie bald das Tshuva miyavu mit Azat Simoin is gewonnen herausgerufen durch this Zedenis. This is the Indian from Tshuva miyavu, that from now on he's becoming someone who's after Rebbe writes before Smeya Nafshel Hashem, to do what? Specific mitzvahs or every mitzvah. The Rotzon of the Eibishter is gewonnen as the Rutschgerufen durch this Denis, the far werden this Denis gufik gesagt. In other words, over here, when we're talking about the Rabbi asked before, that all the things is only not the actual thing, only a preparation to the thing, it becomes part only of the preparation. That's because you're talking about specific mitzvahs. But when you're talking about mitzvah tshuva is not a specific mitzvah. Mitzvah tshuva is to do Rotzon Hashem. It's connected with the general union of the mitzvahs. The clothes in the mitzvahs. But Melech is clothes in the mitzvahs, it becomes part of the mitzvah gufa, because it's such a great thing. It's a great thing that it's not on a mitzvah prati, but it's a clothes the mitzvah. And this is what the Rebbe brings over here in the Orah 69. And I think that the Nikud over here is let's read it aside. The Shleimas Shu al derech mashkos varan. It's only al derech because Lepeil Ran is talking about a specific mitzvah, but that mitzvah, as he says at the end, is considered a mitzvah rabbah. Let's see what it says. The isha in mitzvah b'pidya. She doesn't have the mitzvah to be mekayim mitzvah b'pidya. Machomakim yeshla mitzvah, and there's a whole discussion. What's a mitzvah? The mitzvah of helping or the mitzvah itself? The Ran says she gets the mitzvah of that in itself, as the Rabbi usually point out many places. Without her, he cannot do the mitzvah. As the Rebbe says, he cannot be mekayim the mitzvah without the wife. Shazel gedera mitzvah, l'chein yesh lo mitzvah. Which mitzvah? Mitzvah Rabbo, the piri v'riba. I think the Rebbe added in the word Rabbo over here, even though it's not the gay over here, even though the Quran writes it and we have Mephoshim express it, but the connection to all of it here is, even though it's specific mitzvah, we find it also digmosa in the mitzvah paroti, that it's me'ain al derech, the mitzvah kloli, because it's such a great mitzvah, and therefore it's called the mitzvah Rabbo, and therefore she gets the mitzvah herself, the mamish the mitzvah herself. And this is what the Rebbe continues on in the plea and says, "Das is nor." But when does that happen? That it becomes part of the mitzvah kloli itself. B'shas is do the shleimus hakavana ha'ava v'akavana. Only when you have the shleimus hakavana of zdenis naselek zochiyet. Was damal when the tzadi ava kavana the zdenis achelik von avedis hatshuva. If you have the kavana, the ultimate kavana, the highest level of kavanah, it becomes a part of the avodah tshuva itself. Ubemela, as a result of that, you become kiskuyas. If you have lower levels of kavanah, even though your kavanah is not get rid of the punishment, the kavanah is to do to uproot the avedas. Aber neka, only in neka, not that you become kavanah. The kizachis is because the kavanah itself is also in a lower level. So if it's in a lower level, it doesn't become part of the zochiyas. When you have such a high level of kavanah, as we said before, this al derech hazor, that has become such a kavanah that you want to become one with the Eibishter, that you want to return to the Ratzon Hashem, then this avenis, the Zdeinis itself, become mamish like Zachiyas, because the Shlemis a kavanah, aber b'shasi nitot the Shlemis, chod she'atut tshuva mi'avo, gamol vel nit is Zdeinis k'Zachiyas, mer nit was neker avoinoi mitchilosei. And as the Rebbe says in Order 70, Bahainu, ki b'tshuva mi'ava dafke, mashen k'tshuva mi'yira, this gala etzem mohusei, the mohusa of every yid, shu toiv o kedusha. Umitzad zeh, being that it's gala, the etzem of the nevesh of the yid, mispateles mitzias has doinis lemafreya legamri, and therefore, val zeh in tzorach kavanah b'shleimis, mashen kinanal b'tanya. In other words, tshuva mi'ava, this galas etzem mohusei shu toiv o kedusha, b'meila bet mizbatel mitzias has doinis. But it doesn't come nepach to what do you call it, to mitzvahs. Mashenki, the higher level of tshuva, it becomes mamish kizochi is mamish, because then he connects with the Eibishter itself, not only the etzem mohusei. Rabbi's mamshech is harder in Sivit Ches. It's a little very, very bekitzer. We'll just learn through the best of my ability. The Gmois lahanal, akaponim me'ein hanal, but the rechefshe bekitzer. The Gmois lahanal, that we say that the zochiyes, the azdenis becomes zochiyes in nigla as well. The Gmois in nigla. Rabbi says like this. First of all, machshire mitzvah in the selben inyan with the mitzvah und sie werden a mitzvah. In other words, even though we explained before that machshire mitzvah don't become mamish the mitzvah itself, they remain in the level of machshire mitzvah, and therefore this doinis nasik l'zochiyas is on a different level. They become part, and therefore the chiluk, what the Rebbe explained before, the chiluk of the mitzvah proti and the mitzvah kloli, what every mitzvah has. We do find in Machshir Mitzvah also that they become Mamish Mitzvah, which is Sug de Chinuch, an inyan of Chinuch and Karbonis. Karbonis are Avedis Yemei HaMiluyim, what you call Yemei HaChinuch, or the Minchas Chinuch from Kohanim. It's all Chinuch for him to be able to start working in the Beis HaMikdash. He had to do the first card, Mitzvahs Chinuch of Evich Kohen. The same thing also the Avedas of the Yemei HaMiluyim, which were a preparation Yemei HaChinuch to be able to continue on do the Aveda for in the future forever. But they are all preparations. Chinuch, va'afal pikein, they are Aveda mamish. There's no difference in the Aveda of Yemei HaChinuch and the other Aveda. The same thing also the Mechfoter's Chinuch haben l'tamatera was is min ha'Torah, the chidush of Alter Rebbe, that this is min ha'Torah, even though chinuch of a child is not min ha'Torah. It's only mitzvah. When you're talking about limud ha'Torah, chinuch of a Talmud Torah is min ha'Torah, go as the Alter Rebbe writes in Hilchos Talmud Torah. So we see, even though it's a chinuch, because the child l'cha'ir is potter to do. When you mechanic the child and think about it's potter, afal pikein, the father has a chiyuv minat Torah, it becomes a chinuch, becomes part of the mitzvah itself. V'oid, l'chayri yesh leimar, I'm just throwing in a thing over here for food for thought. The Rebbe brings two things: the sugi chinuch, the karbonis avedas yimei hameluyim, and the minchas chinuch. And the Rebbe wants to, of kohanim, from kohanim. The Rebbe wants to bring this that the machshir mitzvah get the same exact level of the mitzvah. Yeshleimer ulai b'derech efshed that the karbonis avedas yimei hameluyim were also done through Moshe Rabbeinu, we know, and Lav Dafke with all the Beit Kahuna, the Machlekes, the Rebbe spoke about in many sichos. Mashenk and Minchas Chinuch from the Kohanim is done by the Kohen itself with his Beit Kahuna. So there's an addition, more of a level that become Mamish Daveda in the Minchas Chinuch over the Kabbanas for Yimei Avedis Yimei Amelim, L'chayri Yeshlema, because Yimei Amelim, but the Aveda was done in a little bit different than it was done later on in the May when you do all the Kabbanas. Mashenk Mitzvah Chinuch. Maybe I'm wrong. Weiter sagt der Rebbe, Ki ma mitzvahs begolus, loitem sifri al posik va'avadatem begeme, besamtem es dvorai. So the sifri says, Afal pi shani megala eschem, hayu mitzionim b'mitzvahs. Why? Shekishatem choizrim leyi lechem chadoshim. So in other words, the mitzvahs begolus is only a preparation for the later mitzvahs. Afal bekain, it's a chi of mitzvah mamish, for oid. Then the Rebbe continues on. Me'ins doinois nasik zochleis in mitzvahs gufa. This is a machshira mitzvah. In the mitzvahs gufa, we also find a certain mitzvahs which is as if this doinois, a mitzvah which is a negative, that becomes a mitzvah of kizochis, which is, for example, seir hamishtalech, paraduma, be'egla rufa, where the avodah of all these three things is dafke avodah bechutz, you don't do it bifnim in the Beis Hamikdash. Vert avodah hamchaperes, all these three things are mishalech, paraduma, eglarufa. It becomes avodah hamchaperes chatos kari yerachmono v'ba'al karbonis avidosam bifnim dafke unochmer. They get even more than avodah bifnim. Me'enze, Pardel Yob Bahara Carmel, Beherasha, that he was Makriv, Bechutz, a korban. He was a Rasha, Ve'oit. You say to Miza, my Berazal, Minei Ubei Adolish Binargo. The Gemara says you take the wood in order to make a hatchet, in order to chop off wood. And then the Rebbe continues on. Haklal Godel B'Teira, we're saying the same concept. B'kuach nefesh, afila yidei kol averes sheb'Teira chutz hafochei sholish diyarig avda ba'amid hama'abed atzmi l'das ein lechelik le'elam abo va'al yave v'gemer va'id. Chere pshat, and this is as follows. The whole paragraph brings out this point that the averes nasle kizochies in mitzvahs gufa. There's a klal gadol b'Teira that b'kuach nefesh dech is a kol Teira kol, right? B'kuach nefesh dech is everything. The Rebbe says b'kuach nefesh feel like they call averes b'Teira. You're going to be over all the averes b'Teira. The din is yaver v'al yaver, right? You have to be over them. That's doines nasle kizochies. It says lashon chal all of Shabbos achas k'dei sheikayim habishabbos. I say no, it's not only k'dei, but it's not an averes. Then the Rebbe goes on, chutz hafoche, even in hafoche, you also see this nekuda that even though over there is yaharik v'al yaver, you also see over there that then it's nasalik izachis. What's the aver over there? The sholish yaharik. The din is as a ma'abed atzmil das ein chelik le'er mabon. You're not allowed to let yourself be killed. Afal pikein the gabi the sholish averes. You are over and the aveda kabiyochel of ma'abed atzmil das. You're letting yourself be killed ladas. But being that it's these three avedes, is the din is yaharik v'al yavid. So again, even in this, not only in general, all the mitzvahs, which is yavid v'al yaharik, which means you are over the avedes. Even in the mitzvahs, you let yourself be killed, you're also over an aveda. Afal b'kein is then it's not like izachis. L'cha'ida, that's pshat in this paragraph. Yesh lahadik b'chol zah ve'ein kan b'kein. Let's finish off now the Sikha a little bit quicker. It's late already, it's long. But this we will be able to explain what the Gemara concludes. which we asked the question before, how is it possible that this negative thing brings out such a great mile of muftach l'shuv and ilmabo? And the Rebbe says, "Bahagdim lahasbid dem diya kaloshin yidag kolashon." What does it mean he has to worry all year? Unit the lashon aragel, but again, not which Gemara uses many times. Simeral, it's a bad sim. The Rebbe explains a bit was that. The techen in for yidag kolashon. What does it mean? Yidag is avedus hatshuva. That's what the yidag means. The Torah doesn't tell you worry. Torah is not, encouraging to worry about. It means avedus hatshuva. But sein Dagi is not azoi machmas the moira. It's not because he's afraid as a vet mitzish nosa sein. That's not the worrying that he's not going to live it out. Nor if them was the raw carry, that's what he's bothered about. The Rashi zog shemal ekibul tanisei v'ishbiu b'mash b'yodam latzbiyei ke'eved amazing case of Rabbi b'shafach lekit nalponav. That he's getting rewarded with the opposite. They spilled it. They made him a raw carry. That is all of it. That until there is nothing. With the Alter Rebbe is massive claimant. The Rebbe says that he saw a carry. I don't need you. And not the dagger. And his bonus brings him to a hechel even aveda shima. This brings him to do even more aveda. Wie die was had gedaan. Frage a higher aveda than he did before. Different words. Is being given labor miskaven. It's not that he did it intentionally. That's a Yid doesn't sit and think of it. But maybe it's not a result of a Hirur. That's why he saw a Kenny. Is that Sababais? Why did he have the end of the day? Why did he have a Kenny if he wasn't Mahadib? The Sababais, it shows that it doesn't come because he did something bad. His Yetzer Hara, no, but the Eibush. It takes a rose, the Eibush doesn't do anything bad. That means as the Kavanah in them is given as a Zalduch, them coming to a Acharei from Aveda. Why did he show it to him? Why did he cause it? It should be Eila and Aveda. So Aveda is a tshuva, but the regilistic can say that Aveda for not tzaddik. But the two that he can't come in the regular Aveda, which is like that. If he tzaddik doesn't, he can't reach to. B'shas ba'im is the shleimus from Aveda is a tshuva, Yida Kalachana, which means, as the Rebbe explains, he reaches a higher level of tshuva, a higher level of Aveda, come to a suffer. Nicht nur an Aveda Ruchnis, nor euch Gashmis. That brings a Gashmis the result. Mapish Chai, he has long life. Maybe sees mitzat Uzgezelt, mitzat Shelish Shmosei, mitzat Seder Aveda Beifen Arog. He says, most of the Sechtes Yuma Perek Yemekpurim is in the Saim Bechesim B'Maim Arei Kerbi Yemekpurim, and the Sheiches and Hemshech to the Mishnah Besuge was father. That's a connection to before, and why the Gemara concludes with this Kaviyochel negative thing. In the Mishnah at Rabbi Kiva, wegen the zwei Yonetare durch HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we said before, the two levels have a Zoh and Tvil, which we said before, a Zoh boy, Kavona and Tvil, a lay boy. Noch dem is the Gemara Mamshir, the Gemara continues, in dem Inyan, und in Mizmavair, the Mechilik zwischen the zwei of Hani Atshuva by the mention. There are two levels of Hazor and Tvila. Comes same thing also. This Misara Kodesh Baruch Hu, the same also Misara person. There's a Tshuva Miyira and Tshuva Miyava. But Tshuva Miyira is on Shleimus HaKavanah, is without the Kavanah proper. Mashenkin, or without the parentheses, on a Kavanah, it's without a Kavanah at all, because the Kavanah, as we said before, is only not to be punished. Mashenkin Tshuva Miyava, but Parati is Yeser, the Tzvei Afanim in Tshuva Miyava Gufa, the Eifim from Tshuva was durch Ir is Neker, the lower level. That only uproots Avera, and then he becomes like a dag of a tzaddik. But if them is maspik, I feel here tshuva berachadach b'shayt chada b'li shleimus hakavana. We said before, I mentioned it before, that even for one split second you can come to the level of a tzaddik. This davul tshuva, not only tshuva miyira, even tshuva miyava. But dugma inyan atfila. And the noch the hecher of a dag of tshuva was spoiled as denis naslik zochies. Was das kommt dafke durch die Schleimus HaKavanah mit Dugmas Inyan Hazoya Kenal Baruchs. Und die Sugya von Tshuva is the Gemara Messiahim euch mit zwei Inyonim. Just like the two levels of Kavanah and not Kavanah, Tshuva we have also two things. One is Muftach Leisho Ben El Mabo. Das heißt, es kommt ihm nicht zu Kenayim Inyan, nor Meisim Tovim Yesh Biyodoi, as the Mashal says, Bedugma to the meaning from Neker Rabbeinu mit Chilosei, Und wie Rashi sagt, Yeshel da, Tzadik Gomer hu. Because he's doing something that very definitely the Tzadik Gomer. Was Chodj do is given the Yida Kol Hashana Tshuva B'Kavana, aber nicht in Kavana B'Shlei Musa. Therefore, all he does is only Nekar Avinu B'Chilosi. He has only Maisim Tevim, Tzadik Gomer. But then there's the second thing also, Mapish Chai Sagi Masti. But das was raw kere be Yom Kippurim is nicht belois, nicht king geroim ve'inish chas v'sholem. It's not a punishment, no Rabbi. Es kommt zu a Yisrin, but it's often Mapish Chai, he has long life, bedugben to the Mifans, then it's Naslik, he gets more life, was kommt mit Harish Lemes HaKavana. Und der Chidush in the theme of the Friedige Sugya, but again, the Tziva Madreges and Tshuva Miyava, besteht in Aleph, es kommt a Ruiz mehr befehlisch über Bier, wie Azoi, das wird aufgetan, sei der Ingen von Necker Avenu mit Chilosei, und sei das, was Denis Naslik ist, auch ist warm. Aleph, Bareya, bei Yom Kippurim, Shlebe Miskaven, die doch mutkisch, ados sie bekavonen mit Chile, mit Zad Ashkoch, not his Avenis. Beis, durch jede Kolashona, Shlemes HaKavona, Bat Shuva, was der Reya hat me Euren gewinnt, während des Denis gesagt ist, und Beis, the whole general thing, as the sophische idea of Vedas HaTshuva, kommt Ruiz euch ins Schar Gashmi, Yarich Yomim, bis euch in die Shlemes HaSchar Bebonim, Ubnei Bonim, ois kim beteiro ubevitzis. I hope I was a little helpful.